Now there are a few fly patterns out there that are fairly universal. And for the dry fly, it's this guy. You've got some kind of tail, usually a thin body, and then some kind of rooster feather wrapped as a collar hackle, and you may or may not have a wing. And for a bucktail or streamer, sometimes you've got a tail, got some kind of thin body, and then either a feather or some kind of hair for a wing. And you might flash it up a little bit with a rib or some crystal flash, maybe put a throat on it, or even some jungle cock for the eyes. But for the most part, the basics are all the same. And there's a pretty basic template for mayfly nymphs as well. Usually some kind of fibers for a tail, a thin body, a little bit thicker of a thorax, then some kind of feather fibers for legs, and usually some kind of wing case. And that's what I want to do for you today. A simple mayfly nymph that follows this pattern. But don't be fooled by its simplicity. There's a lot of utility in this style. You can imitate a lot of bugs just by changing the size or a couple of the colors. But I am going to show you a technique that a lot of you might not have used before, and that's wrapping a goose biot for the body. So is a goose biot body going to make this a better fly than a fur dub body with a wire rib? In most situations, probably not. But it is a pretty cool technique, and it's not a bad idea to have this in your bag of tricks. So there you go in the vise, a simple little Biot Nymph. Pretty easy pattern, not a whole lot to it, but one you can get a lot of mileage out of. Now I'm tying this on a size 14. It's a 1 extra long, 1 extra strong nymph hook. And for your thread, use whatever you want. If you want to try to match the body, that's great. If not, just go with black. You can always use black. And the first thing we're going to catch in is a tail. Pheasant tail fibers. Just, about 8 or so of them. And get the tips lined up if you want. Make sure, at least 3 or 4 of them are lined up. And not terribly long, maybe a little bit longer than a hook gap, but I would say shorter than a body length. So I like that tail right there. And I'm going to leave these in here and let them, help bulk up my underbody. Just a few loose wraps going up right there. I think that's fine. Now let's take our thread back to the tail and catch in a goose biot. Just take one of these right here, and I want to use brown. And it's not necessarily brown in the middle, but grab one of the longest ones you can get. And I'll catch it in with the tip forward, and they do have a little bit of a concave side. And I'll try to get the concave side toward the hook, just like that. And these are slippery, but they're kind of strong, so you can really catch it in with just at the very tip, and you'll still be fine. So get it caught in, then take your thread up here to where we're going to stop wrapping this biot body. And if you've got really dexterous fingers, you can probably wrap this with your fingers. If not, just grab some, spring-loaded hackle pliers and grab the very tip. Now this first wrap is the one you're going to want to pay the most attention to. After you get that one down, the rest of them are easy. And what we're looking for here is a little bit of a ridge and a little bit of a rib. Can you see this? This was a brown goose biot, but it really looks kind of gold right now. So get about 4 wraps if you can, and then catch it off up here with at least 2 tight wraps. And it's not the end of the world if this thing unravels on you. You just have to grab another one and re-catch it in. But that's our body right there. Now we do have this little nub to take care of. Okay, and I'm going to fold this back. This is going to be our wing case, but a couple more wraps going back. Get us some room for the thorax right here. Smooth out this area just a little bit. Now let's put some wax on our thread. And the dubbing, it's really your choice. I'm going to go with a brown, and this is a rabbit. I did that one in the vise a minute ago, I think it was an olive, and it looked fine. But I do like the rabbit because you can get some bulk, build up some bulk pretty quickly with a rabbit. And if I erred to any side on this one, it would be to make this thorax just a little bit bigger than I needed. We could always pick some out later, but let's go ahead and wrap a big bulbous thorax right here. Okay, I think that looks fine. And the next thing we want is a partridge feather. Either a natural or brown, just one of the small tip feathers right here. then cut a little notch out of it with, you know, maybe 8 fibers on each side. And we'll just lay this right on top. And don't worry about the length yet. We will pull it to size in just a minute. So a couple of loose wraps right there. And if you see that, those legs are a lot longer than we want. So I'm going to pull this up and then just shorten them until I get them to the right size. Okay, I think that's going to be fine right there. And don't worry if they're not lined up yet. We can use this pheasant tail to, you know, kind of separate them here in just a minute. Now just snip the front of this piece. And I think we got the right length, so let's just kind of pull this right up over the top. We're building our little wing case and trying to position these legs at the same time. Okay, I think that's going to work. Snip this excess and then work on our head. Okay, now build the head as big as you want, and I think a 4 or 5 turn whip finish right here will be just fine. Now let's see if we have any cleanup. I'm fine with that. I think those legs are the right length. You might want to trim a couple of them that are coming off the bottom, but really I think we've got a fishable fly. I want to put a drop of head cement on it, and this thing's going in my nymph box. So that's it, everybody. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.